We're going to talk about the pieces that we think the animated show did better than the live action show.
I was upset about some of the extent to which they used green screen, blue screen, and I don't think they used enough location shooting for the movie.
Aang's sense of humor, it was better. It was better in the animated series. I know Bumi it didn't capture the magic, but like why? I couldn't like put my finger on it. Like what did they not get?
Which my next complaint would be a really overarching complaint, which is that the live action series does not have the patience that the animated series had. The animated series knew that they were making something great and they knew they could wait for seasons 2 and 3.
Welcome to Backseat Directing,
where we talk about movies, TV shows, comics, and more.
We're your hosts,
Andrew
and Aaron,
and we put out new episodes every Monday and Thursday.
And on this episode, we're talking about the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender.
3, 2, 1, action. And you guys probably get this from the thumbnail, but we're not talking about M. Night Shyamalan here. We're talking about Netflix's live action Avatar. Specifically, we're going to be haters today and talk about the things that we think that they did better in the animated series, that the animated series, you know, I can't say improved upon because it was the original, but that they omitted or changed in some way into the live action, and it kind of rubbed us the wrong way.
Yeah, and if you haven't already, you can go check out like our full review on the live action series. It's a few episodes ago. I'll also link it down in the description so you can go check that out as well.
Before we get into being haters, I do want to start with some positive news. And that positive news is that our short film, The Body, was accepted into its first film festival.
Let's go!
Yeah! So the Sunscreen Film Festival, the 19th annual in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is pretty close to where we live, is going to be screening our short film, and it's going to be up for nomination for potential awards. It's a 3 or 4 day festival, and we're going to have passes to go for the entire festival and sit in on some workshops, meet some new people, and it will be a ton of fun. We're hoping to go for the entire festival, and we're hoping to win some awards.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
This is literally our first one, so it's really nice to see that it's going to be screened in front of a live audience.
It's also the first one we applied to, so we were in contention for I think 3 or 4 other ones that we applied to, and so this is the first one to hear back from. The other ones we're still waiting, so we haven't been denied by anybody yet. So right now we're 1 for 1.
That's right.
100% success rate, and it feels pretty good, pretty damn good.
All right, let's get into...
You can check that out on our page, by the way, The Body.
Yeah, it'll be linked in the bottom as well. All right, let's dive into the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is one of the best TV shows ever, and that is the animated version. It's 3 seasons long. There's like 20 to 22 episodes a season, 30 minutes long or so, and it's so in-depth. It has to be the best like character building story there is, you know? So when they put out the live action version on Netflix, there was a lot of like skeptics kind of going on, you know, where half of the people it seemed like enjoyed it and half of the people really didn't like it because they just didn't capture the magic of the animated show. So today, like we've already talked about, we're going to talk about the pieces that we think the animated show did better than the live action show. Andrew, what's your first point that you want to talk about?
Okay, so I've only written down maybe 5 points here. My first one, which is probably my biggest complaint for the live action series, and it's hard to translate this to the screen from animation, but I was upset about some of the extent to which they used green screen, blue screen, and I don't think they used enough location shooting for the movie.
Interesting.
It's kind of a new modern standard to use a lot more of set shooting, blue screen, green screen. I mean, you look at cast photos from Endgame and it's like there's like one rock and then 50 actors surrounded by giant tarps of blue screen as far as the eye can see. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the fact that the giant battle at the end of Endgame is just like a desolate wasteland after the attack of rockets from Thanos' ship. I think it's boring. But Avatar is known for its beautiful, colorful landscapes and its beautiful world. And we see that in the wide shots of the series, like establishing shots of the Fire Nation castle, the Fire Nation palace, and the establishing shots of the north and establishing like shots of Omashu. Like they look great from a distance. It looks incredible. And then when you get close, like I mentioned this in our original view, that some of the shots, like you're looking over the shoulder of people in the market in Omashu, and it's just like a very clear green screen background that's like, you know, some rocks and rubble. And it's evident that they're not in the same location, which is a nitpick, but it takes me out of the show. It's like, oh, I'm watching Netflix's version of Avatar. I'm not watching. I'm not like engrossed anymore when there's enough of that. There's some shots in the woods, you know, filming where there's real rivers and real trees. You know, like when they're going to the bounty hunter and when Iroh's been captured by the Earth Nation soldiers. Like there's, or even in Kyoshi, there's a lot of shots really in the woods, but just too much for me of the set shooting green screen. And we could have done with some more physical locations to really keep you in the world.
I see your point. I think whenever you can go to a location, the better, right? Whenever you're really there, it's going to give you the best product.
We're about to do an episode on Dune Part 2, and they have some shots in Italy. They have some shots in Jordan, in Asia, and you know, I think they have some other shots like in the Middle East area as well for their desert scenes, and it looks so good when you go to a location. Like the payoff is huge.
Yeah. I don't 100% agree with you. I did like a lot of the visuals in this show, but there were a few shots that I was like, oh, okay.
Could have been a little.
Yeah, that could have been a little better, you know. But for the most part, I think the show looked really good.
Their set design is really impressive when they use it, like Bumi's palace and the Fire Nation. What was it called? Where the Fire Nation priests live. That
Temple.
Thank you. Fire Nation Temple is, you know, stunning as well with all kinds of cool designs. So when they go that extra mile, it looks great.
Okay, ready for my first one?
I'm ready.
The animated series had Aang's sense of humor. It was better. It was better in the animated series. I think this is probably the biggest complaint that I've heard on the internet and from other friends I've been talking about was
Aang being too serious.
Aang was too serious and not childish enough because he's 12 years old. He just wants to go have a fun time. He literally just wants to go play and hang out with his friends. And we don't really get to see that a lot in the live action show. He's kind of taken the responsibility right away, and they kind of went with this approach of like him kind of having this internal conflict of if he can do it or not if, hey, I just want to go play and have fun. Why do I have to be an adult and save the world right now?
Yeah, I think that they shot themselves in the foot taking out like some of the adventures, like trying to ride the giant koi fish at Kyoshi Island and things like that. Like those adventure spirits.
Penguin sledding.
Yeah, the penguin sledding. A lot of people complained about the penguin sledding, which all of the just fun adventurous things. Aang had when he took out the map in the beginning of the series, he was like, oh, we're going to like stop here and we'll stop by Omashu. That's where my friend Bumi used to live. Like he had all this excitement and wonder at the world. And like he was planning adventures. He wasn't planning to fight the Fire Lord.
Right.
And
or at least it's like, hey, Katara, can we stop here along the way?
Yeah.
you know?
Like he wants to like go shopping and stuff. Like they took that out, and that's I think what took out Aang's like humor.
Childish wonder.
But also they took out not took out, but Iroh's humor didn't play as well.
Whoa, are you adding in another point?
Well, I think it's on the same wavelength. I think Iroh's humor doesn't play as well. I primarily want to talk about Aang because that's the focus of the show. But I think the show just wasn't as funny. They saw Sokka as the comic relief, and then they pretty much ignored comedy from anyone else, I think.
Yeah, I'd second that.
Also, Bumi was hilarious. I know I accidentally said Bumi, but he was so funny in the animated series, and he turned into just a prick.
Yeah. I think he was definitely better in the animated series.
That is leading me into my next complaint.
Yeah.
If you want to
what is it? Let's hit it.
My next complaint is that they just ruined Bumi.
Yeah.
Like,
what happened? Why? I know Bumi it didn't capture the magic, but like why? I couldn't like put my finger on it. Like what did they not get?
In the animated show, Bumi is fun. Bumi has Aang come into the palace and he's testing him to try to remember who he is. He said, like, at that point, he's 100 years old, unrecognizable to Aang. And he's like, you don't recognize me? So he makes him go through all these series of challenges and trials, which is actually, in a way, the first person to train Aang, you know, as a student, other than Monkey Otto. But in the series, the first person to put Aang through these trials and tests and, you know, teach him, like, the level that it will take for him to do what he needs to do on this journey. Instead, he's just kind of in the show. He's mean. He's a 100-year-old man who's holding a grudge against a 12-year-old child who's been blocked in ice this whole time. He's holding a grudge against him for not being around when he needed him. And like the wise old Bumi from the show would not hold that grudge against a kid. He at 12, he ran away, not knowing that he was going to be stuck in ice for 100 years. He made a mistake, and he's a child. And I feel like to hold that against him is just the mark of like the opposite of wisdom. It's the mark of somebody who's just rash and impulsive and frankly like mean. Like he's a kid.
Yeah.
And so I think that makes a lot of people not resonate with Bumi and not like him. And I don't think that's the casting. I think the casting was good. The visuals were good. It's just the writing.
I think they should have actually hired a 100-year-old man, though.
Right, that would have been awesome.
It's kind of like, it's kind of like if you go to real scenes, the real locations, like you got to hire actors that are the actual appropriate age. I mean, that was a misstep. All right, my next point.
Taking the job from a 100-year-old actor who's been waiting for the role of a lifetime.
My next point is Sokka and Suki's relationship. They did much better in the animated series than the live action.
Yeah.
It kind of seemed like right away in the live action, Sokka was like, wow, you're a fierce warrior. But in the animated series, he was like, I'm a better warrior because I'm a man. You're a girl. How could you be a fierce warrior?
Obviously, the internet went abuzz with them talking about removing Sokka's main negative character trait, which was his misogyny in the animated series, which gave a lot of room for character growth, right? It's like saying you're going to make Toph not be bullheaded and mean, because that's, I mean, a lot of the complaints from everybody and from all sides of viewership were saying that you have to let characters have negative traits so that, and pretending like misogyny doesn't exist doesn't solve the problem of misogyny either.
Right.
Like acknowledging it and showing how to change is a much more effective approach.
He's also a kid. He's what, like 15 maybe? Maybe even a little younger. And in his tribe, he's the leader. He's the man, because all the other men have gone to fight. No, the other women went to fight. So in his world, men are warriors.
It's like a cultural thing, even and especially highlighted when we go to the north, right? Like they don't even let women train in offensive waterbending. They only train as healers. So it's a cultural aspect. And Sokka's like, it's great that he supports Katara in becoming a warrior in the north, but that moment, how much more impactful would that have been if he had been the misogynistic Sokka that we knew at the start of the season?
Right.
That would have been an arc instead of him just supporting his sister, which a brother should do.
Right.
I'm glad that he did support her, and that moment was really cool. I wish Aang had supported her too. But this kind of folds into my next point anyway, nicely, which my next complaint would be a really overarching complaint, which is that the live action series does not have the patience that the animated series had. The animated series knew that they were making something great, and they knew they could wait for seasons 2 and 3 to hit some of these beats and hit some of these arcs that they forced earlier into the series. It's one of the most magnificent things about the animated series is how just beautifully patient they are in the writing and the development of these characters. Like, I think they started to develop Zuko really early. I think it was impatient to bring...
In the live action?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's already, they're giving a soft-hearted side to him a little bit early for my taste. I get that he's human, he's well-rounded, but they show that a lot better in the animated series, with more towards him, having a soft side towards his uncle, which is, it's in both, but I think they make him a little bit too kind of affectionate, not affectionate, but a little bit too gentle towards the Aang gang. And, he's violently against them. Like, it's to the point in season 2 of the animated series, he's getting physically ill at the thought of changing his course in this destiny. So I think that the patience just wasn't there in this live action series, and even the patience in terms of just bringing on characters. Like, we have to show Azula in season 1. We have to show Ozai within 3 minutes of the first episode when he's literally not seen until like season 3 of the animated series, and showing Wang Shitong outside of his library for what? Like, just wandering. He wouldn't leave the library. Showing the Fog of 1,000 Souls, which isn't even in, or Fog of Lost Souls, which isn't even in Avatar the animated. It's in Legends of Korra. That's like, you guys jumped ahead to a whole nother TV show to bring that into the series. I mean, I get why they did it for plot reasons, but bringing those characters and those elements, and it just felt forced. It felt like they were trying to show us things from the universe, which hey, I'm not here to complain about fan service because fan service is great, but fan service also has its time. You know, fan service will be there in season 2. They also, if you didn't know, they just announced season 2 and 3. They confirmed both already.
I saw that.
I think confirms the long held belief that any press is good press, because no matter what people are saying about Avatar: The Last Airbender, it has been, everyone's been saying something, you know.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, and there's gonna be, even if everyone hated this first season, there's still probably going to be more viewership on season 2 than another one of their original shows that they're going to be putting out.
Yeah.
It may not have the same budget, so maybe that's why. But this actually segues really nicely into one of my next points, and that is they did not film all 3 seasons back to back, and I think that was a big mistake.
oh yeah,
Because if you're watching interviews of the cast, especially the character who plays Aang on like these talk shows and stuff, he's like 6 inches taller. His voice is already deeper. Like he's growing. You know, they filmed this 2 years ago.
that kid has style, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can kind of dress.
That's right. I like him.
He's a cool guy.
But I think it was a mistake, not just greenlighting all 3 seasons. You're already committed to telling the story, so you might as well tell the whole story. Again, bad publicity is good publicity, and just do better. Just continue to improve, you know, take what you hear and improve upon it.
Yeah, it seems like a given that they would know they'd have enough viewership for seasons 2 and 3. I mean, even if it's not like their best numbers, even if it's not beating Stranger Things, it's Avatar. It's going to be enough for 3 seasons.
And now they're probably going to have to make a lot of changes to season 2 and 3, even more so than they've made with season 1. And that could be good, but most likely people aren't going to receive it as well.
The Harry Potter movies were in a constant race against the aging of their cast.
Yeah.
And they were filming full feature-length films every year to bust them out before these kids could look too old for their characters or have to recast or anything ridiculous like that. And I've seen just funny memes about the actor who plays Aang in season 2, and they'll like elongate his legs and his torso, and then he's like taller than Sokka. It's
going to be different. It's going to be different.
I'm surprised we don't have more of like the same points. We have some that are like narrowly missing each other.
Yeah.
Like ships in the night.
Yeah. All right. What's your next one?
I've kind of like gone into all of my points besides one now, just going back and forth. So
you have one left, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear it.
My last one is kind of small, but it's I didn't like how Sokka's dad was basically being an asshole to him in the Fog of Lost Souls. Like, doesn't seem like the way his dad's. I know that when they go for live action, they try to make things a little grittier and make characters a little more imperfect, but I didn't feel like that was a character that needed to be messed with. I mean, he's the only parent they have left, and I feel like they idealize him, and I feel like he in some ways lives up to it. He's in the animated series, he's just a really cool dad. Yeah, it's and to show him like trash talk his own son, like they're like, what are you doing? He's like, my 9-year-old son couldn't navigate the icy shores of the South Pole. It's like, okay, maybe let him turn 12 before you force him into a life and death situation. Like, yeah, Hakoda, like, Hakoda is the dad.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember his dad's like best friend. Yeah. He's the one who like in the live action series saved them all kind of by noticing the problem. And it's like, yeah, he should. He's been a warrior for 20 years. Like, I mean, like, cut the kid some slack. Like, let him have a chance. I don't know. I just thought it was unnecessarily mean, and they're just kind of giving Sokka something to be sad about, which, like, both of them could have been sad about the Fire Nation attacking their village. That's a way better reason to be sad than your dad being disappointed in you. Like, his mom died.
Yeah.
The animated series does kind of tend to lean towards, like, that being Katara's, like, ailment more so than Sokka's. But like that belongs to both of them just as much emotionally. Like, they both lost their mother. They both lost their people.
Yeah. But now his arc is, I'm going to prove my dad. I'm going to prove it to him that I am a warrior. I hear what you're saying, but I did definitely feel the emotion behind that scene, you know, whether it was better for his character or not. It was an emotional scene.
It didn't really resonate with me. I mean, I was really sucked out of it. And your worst nightmare is your dad thinking you might not be the best warrior. That's like Aang has the devastation of all of his people, everybody in their nation. And then Katara's got the same thing. And he's got like my dad was disappointed in me once when I was really little. Like, okay, you've never had anyone disappointed in you before?
Yeah. All right. My next point is that in season 1 of the live action, or sorry, of the animated series, we got to see Aang bend more than just air.
Oh, that is huge. I should have written that down myself.
We only got to see him air bend.
Yeah.
We didn't get to see him water bend at all. And I had to go back and kind of, I looked through like YouTube pages and stuff of him like bending every time he bent and stuff. I was like, did he not use water?
He didn't water bend at all. He didn't even water bend when he got to the Northern Water Tribe.
But he did in the animated one.
Yeah.
And that's what I was looking up. I was like, did he not do that in the animated? I thought he did. And he did a few times. Well, he didn't really do it in a fight outside of the Avatar state, but he would like practice with Katara and mess up.
Absolutely.
And mess up.
Well, he was a natural at it. He showed her. He gives her advice in the live action series, but in the animated series, he like steps up to the water and he's like, oh, like this, and he starts like making like a big wave, and he like starts teaching her initially before she ends up teaching him, because she masters water quicker, but he has a natural talent for bending, not only as the Avatar, but as like just a prodigy.
Yeah.
He's the youngest airbending master ever.
Yeah.
No one's ever been an airbending master at 12. He earned his tattoos as a master. So like he's a gifted bender. You know, he has difficulty when it comes to the other elements that are more opposing to him, like earth and fire. But with water, he kind of catches on to the basics very quickly. And so it was very frustrating to wonder, when is this guy going to start bending water? And the whole point of season 1, book 1, water. He is supposed to learn to water bend.
Right.
Why isn't she teaching him? Like, I don't know. It was just so frustrating, because part of the reason they go to the north is because that's where the waterbenders are. The south has only Katara, a novice. And so they go to the north so he can learn waterbending from Master Pakku. And like, he goes to train with Pakku, and Katara is upset she's not also going. Like, that is just such a frustrating change. Like, they're gonna like have him learn waterbending more in season 2. That's the point of book 1.
Yeah.
Is learning water.
Within this point or critique or whatever we're calling it, I also want to include that we didn't get to see Aang go into the Avatar state when escaping from Zuko's ship.
Yeah, that's what as soon as he flew away, I said out loud, I was like, well, I guess we're not getting the Avatar state.
That's like one of the most recognizable like fight scenes to me. It's the one that I remember, like when we think of.
It's the first time you see the Avatar state.
Yeah, that and like him on his air scooter and like him just kind of playing around with Zuko, kind of like just taunting him. You know, showing his composure and showing Zuko's rage. Yeah. That he is a good firebender, but he can't control his emotions. Therefore, his fire and his ability to fight, he's losing.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, we got to see Katara bend the water to save that fireball, but it didn't hit as hard for me.
I get why they did it, because immediately after that, he goes to the Southern Air Temple, sees the death of his people, and erupts in a rage that they didn't want to do. The Avatar state and then have it happen 3 minutes later. But here's a simple correction in my mind. I'm frustrated with the beginning of the show because I feel like it was overly expository, giving us the earth, fire, water long ago, that giving us the exposition basically 3 times and repeating themselves and starting off, forcing in these fight sequences, forcing in like the backstory. I personally feel like if they reordered events, they could have had a much better episode. If instead of like starting off with the backstory showing us the air temple and all the people and Aang's relationship with Gyatso, instead of starting off with that, save that to the end of the episode and do that in flashbacks as he's going through the Southern Air Temple. Now you have all these beats and extra time to where you're building up our connection to him directly to his emotional, like we're feeling his emotions at the same time and getting connected to Monk Gyatso. And then when he erupts in rage, we're feeling it more. And now there's been more time between Avatar states where you could have done the Avatar state in the very important story beat on the boat where it belonged. Right. And now there's more time, and that works better for me. Like,
and that's the first time we really get to see him waterbend too, in the Avatar state.
I wouldn't take out that part because it was cool to get to see all that backstory with at the air temple. But just starting off with it feels like, okay, like the show starts with the Southern the Southern Water Tribe. That's where we should start.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our main characters, you know. That's giving us, and you could have really developed Sokka and Katara a little bit more there, starting with just them without Aang. You know, I think that the ordering of events there was a little sloppy.
Okay, I know you've gone through all of your points, but I do have one point that you've mentioned to me in the past that maybe you just didn't write down, but I know it kind of bothered you. And that was the live action didn't do Appa and Momo justice compared to the animated.
Yeah. They weren't true characters. You know, people talk about New York being a character in Spider-Man.
Gotham being a character in Batman.
These animals, if you want to call them, Appa's a spirit animal, like spirit guide to Aang. It's a very important connection. These animals are a part of the Aang gang. It's Katara, Sokka, Aang, Appa, and Momo. Like it's not just the three. They're integral parts. I mean, they're there the whole time. They're very connected with them, and they felt like wall ornaments and decorations in the live action
They just
series.
felt like transportation.
Yeah, transportation, like a vehicle, and also like they're here because they were there, and not like to really be present in a role. Like Aang, how am I supposed to be devastated like I was in the animated series when Appa is taken in season 2, or devastated watching Appa's Lost Days in season 2, if you're not going to treat Appa like a character, if you're just going to treat him like a cattle, you know?
Yeah, a horse.
like a cattle.
Okay, my last point, and then I have a question for you after. My last point that the animated series did better was when Aang meets Ko. The face stealer.
Again, you talk about Aang's composure.
Like earlier. They didn't really explain how he takes people's faces. They mentioned the face stealer, but they don't explain like how that works. So when I was watching, I was like, wow, if someone's watching this for the first time, which go watch the animated show, but if they were watching this for the first time, it's like, oh, they're missing something here.
It's like Ko is so much less cool. If you're
he's just a creature, rather than like this formidable force, you know, that he is in the animated show.
You can't even show a wink of emotion in front of him, otherwise he steals your face.
Yeah,
that's pretty intense. I mean, I think we were all waiting on bated breath the first time we watched that scene. You know, our heart kind of like leaping forward when Ko turns around and Aang gets excited because he learns a piece of key information.
The fish.
And then he
yin and yang, and then
cuts back.
Where do I find
stoic?
Yeah.
Like
I just watched that scene today. It's good, and it shows his personality, but also his maturity.
Yeah.
To be able to snap right back.
He's got a lot of control, bodily control to do what he does, bending control, and
that's why he's an airbending master.
Yeah, he's so simultaneously well done in the animated series as childish and fun and goofy, but also like intimidating and powerful.
Yeah,
like the idea, like when that moment when Aang fights the volcano and Sokka goes, "Sometimes I forget what a powerful bender that kid really is." That line like highlights like. We're lulled into that sense of security as an audience member, and Aang is just fun. It's like Aang can kick some ass.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, here's my question to end the show with. Okay, all of my points and most of your points seem to be about character development and the maybe lack thereof in the live action show. So why is it that in the animated show we got so much more character development and hit all of these plot points, but we weren't able to do so in the live action show? You know, like, how does that not work? I understand when you're transferring a book to the screen, you know, or a book to a TV show, like it's hard to fit everything in because in the book you get to hear the internal dialogue of characters and stuff. And in live action, it doesn't work like that as well. But this is a show and a show. Where was that? And some people were like, oh, well, the time difference. The animated show for season 1 is 477 minutes long. The live action show is 430 minutes long. So the live action show is a little bit less. But how does it feel like we got so much more exponentially in the animated show?
Let me just do some quick math here. 430 minutes. So it has 9% less. Like that is not that much. It's 8.5% really.
Yeah, it's got 47 minutes less. So if they would have done one more episode of the live action, it would have been in the same amount of screen time. So, but why did we miss so much of the character development?
I think they chose to replace some things with stuff that wasn't absolutely necessary at the time. I mean, they're trying to make us feel connected to these characters maybe a little bit more so early, like the Lieutenant funeral scene. And I'll say this knowing that it's probably my favorite scene in the show. It didn't need to be in season one. And stuff like that takes up extra time. Stuff like the earthbending plot to at the very opening of the show, the earthbending plot to get information, or Azula and her time spent in the show with the other earthbending plot. Not they may have even been firebenders, I'm not sure, but with like that little group and like unveiling that she was undercover. None of that stuff is in season one. They added in extra stuff that wasn't even in season one of the animated, like those characters basically weren't even in season one of the animated series. So they spent a lot of time with Ozai, Azula. You see her hanging out with May and Ty Lee. Like they don't exist in season one of the animated show. So they chose to add in all this stuff that your time is precious. Treat it like it's precious, you know, like the characters we have here and now, build them. We don't need to build May and Ty Lee yet. The animated show already showed us that. We love May and Ty Lee in the animated series and they don't show up till season two. It's fine. We didn't need to have them in season one to love them. So I think that they just basically not intentionally, but chose to waste some time on things that they thought were I'm sure they thought were important, but it's like just follow the blueprint. And I know people are going to complain about that concept. Like don't one for one copy it. I would have been fine with a one for one copy. The blueprint is strong. It's the strongest blueprint arguably ever.
Yeah, I personally do like that they attempted to change things and that it wasn't just a one for one. But I feel like you could have still had in the character development, at least for the main character, Aang. You know?
Aang.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad. But do you think it has anything to do with animation versus live action? Like, is there just stuff in animation that they were able to do that the live action wasn't that gave us that character development?
I think that the two are separate. I think there's stuff you can do in animation that you cannot pull off in live action, at least well. But I think that when you, like how you said, a lot of our complaints are character based or writing based. Like, we're not complaining that the fights with Bumi didn't look good. We're complaining that Bumi, the writing wasn't done well, that the dialogue with Bumi wasn't done well. So I think it more so just translates the storytelling.
I think they could have taken the characteristics of each character and made sure that they stayed faithful to those characteristics, and then from there tell the story how you want to. But you have to stay faithful to the characters themselves. Well, and if you want to change the order or change like an event or two, that's okay, but make sure that the characters are still the characters that we originally got to see. Yeah, I think that's where they missed.
In the animated series, it's like Appa's fun. Like Appa goes back and forth with Sokka, or like Appa like growls at somebody, or you see him floating in the water like on his back or something when they're like having one of their little hangout moments in season one. And that stuff, yes, is harder to accomplish in live action. But just choosing to completely omit it removes Appa from having any personality. So that's
what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments the parts that you liked better about the animated show versus the live action show, or even vice versa. What are some of the things that you enjoyed a lot about the live action show that maybe they just did well from the animated, or maybe improved upon? Let us know down in the comments. Again, you can check out our full review on the live action show. Again, that's linked down in the description of this video. And we had a bunch of comments on that one, and Andrew and I did our best to comment back to as many as we could. And the conversation was a lot of fun. So be sure to leave a comment. If you want to talk with us even more and join our growing community of film lovers, you can join the conversation on Discord. That is free. There is a link in the description of our YouTube page of this video. So again, join the Discord. It's free. We talk about upcoming episodes. We talk about the movies that we just watched and anything and everything in between. What did you have?
I have something to close this episode with, and I almost forgot to. We got a comment, and fittingly, it's on one of our old Avatar episodes that I thought was really funny.
Okay. Hit it with me.
It's so annoying how on TikTok they're all out of order, but this is a TikTok we made about Korra potentially being, me arguing that Korra is the strongest Avatar, strongest bender to ever live, and with all of her different techniques and abilities. And somebody tagged their friend in it, and he responded, "Notice how these guys have 3,000 followers. Terrible takes." And
Great job. Great job.
so
How many followers does he got, real quick?
I looked. I don't want to roast him. He has 89 followers.
Ooh.
But it gets funny from there because
so funny.
I immediately saw that, right? And this is
Yeah.
a video. I mean, this is one of our decent videos. It has over 2,500 likes and like a lot of views. So which for TikTok's okay. But I immediately saw it and I responded a laughing emoji to what he said. I will say what your original response was. I typed that out. I typed out more than 89 followers and I said, hold on. Delete. And then I just sent a laughing emoji, and he responded, "I didn't think you'd see that," with like with the straight faced emoji, like the line. And
That's awesome.
so I said, "I see everything" with the eye emojis. No worries, we know we have room to grow, and the Atla fan base is intense. That's why we love making Atla content. And he responded to his friend and said, "There's something else I want to say." He said, "Okay, I want to say something else, but I don't want to be mean to these people. They seem very nice."
That's awesome.
I thought that was a funny little.
I love that.
I choose to take the high road this time.
That's doesn't happen every time, let's say. But
Depends on the mood.
yeah,
That's me.
if it was in person, it definitely no high road would have been taken.
I had the chance to take a beat.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for watching. We post new full episodes every Monday and Thursday. Make sure you hit that notification bell because sometimes we throw out extra content as well, and you don't want to miss that. We post on social media like TikTok every single day, so be sure to check us out there as well.
Don't miss out on these Dune Part 2 memes I'm making.
That's right. All right. Thank you so much, and
That's a wrap.